going to share 5 things that you can do to help ensure that you get a dramatic sky in your next painting. One of the first things that I would suggest is go big. Let's admit it, painting on this kind of scale is a lot more exciting than painting on this size. But having said that, I would really encourage you, if you're thinking about going up, paint a thumbnail painting first and work out your color and your composition. I have a link in the description box below on exactly how I did this brush by brush and worked through all the different problems. There's some great advantages to painting on this size. This is the largest size I've ever done. It's a 48 by 36. One of the disadvantages is if you make a mistake in something this size, it's not that evident. But if you make a mistake in something this size, everyone's going to see it. Another issue is just the cost involved in a canvas this size. It took an incredible amount of paint. I was really surprised how much paint it took. Even though I'd put another coat of gesso on it ahead of time, it just felt like a sponge sucking up paint. The other thing that I would kind of caution you about on painting this size is that it's very difficult, particularly if you're working with acrylics, to get the background color in so that the sky transition from top to bottom is very smooth. It's so big and it's drying so quickly, it was very difficult to do that. I did not put a slow dry medium in my sky because I wanted to go ahead and start painting. In retrospect, I would probably do the sky with a slow dry medium, give it a day, and then go back over it with the clouds. Tip number 2 for painting a more dramatic sky. If you don't get the perspective right, the clouds won't read correctly. You'll hear me talk about this a lot. I've done a video called How to Avoid One of the Biggest Mistakes When Painting Skies. I'll put a link to that in the description box below. But in that, I show you how I use a yardstick and chalk lines to make sure that the painting is reading correctly. So if you'll notice this, you can tell that the clouds are coming from the back of the painting and they're coming towards you. And if you could see here, I've left this chalk line. I had a chalk line here, 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 and here. And I started putting my clouds on top of those chalk lines, and that just helped me keep from getting off track with this. And I think the larger the painting that you're working with, the easier it is. If you get something that's off a little bit, it's really noticeable. The other thing I want to caution you about when you're working large is you've got to get the scale correct. So as I was looking at my reference photo, this was a field at Renolda Gardens in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and this was right at sunrise. And I went back to my reference photo before putting in the trees. If I had painted those trees this tall, the perspective of the sky would look totally different. Because the trees are so small, it's making the sky look even grander. So if you want to paint a really dramatic sky, let the sky be the main thing, let everything else be small and the background so that that drama is more evident in the sky. The third key I'd like to share with you about how to get a dramatic sky is you've got to start with a dramatic composition. You can only do so much with a boring photo. So I'm going to show you from this same morning and then some other mornings a number of photographs that I took and talk about why some would make a great dramatic painting and others would not. And that hopefully that'll help you as you look at your references to see which ones would more likely ensure a dramatic painting. Let me start off with a few photographs that I would not use for a painting. This first one is just boring. There's just nothing particularly interesting about the clouds or the trees. This next one is a little better, but compositionally, the trees just slant down to the right side. The clouds are pretty much going straight across the top. It's just not an interesting composition. This next one I took in the mountains, and it's the type of pretty painting that I would have done in the past where everything is balanced. That cloud's right in the middle. The foreground, the middle ground, the background are all pretty much in straight lines. It's just compositionally not very interesting. Let's look at a few photographs that I would use. I think this one is just beautiful. The colors, the light, the trees are kind of going around in a semicircle, and the tops of the trees are catching the light. It's just a very interesting composition. Here's another one. There's a lot going on with different shapes of clouds. Clouds are down at the horizon with all that deep gold and then catching the light up at the top. I think this could be lovely. And here's an idea, and I know we're talking about skies, but this was taken from the same field, and it didn't show up well in this, but actually the sky in the background of this had a great glow. I just got down real low and took a photograph of the field, and I think the texture of that, adding a few more flowers and then putting that glow in the background, could make a very interesting composition and painting. Tip number 4 to have a dramatic sky is to have a composition with dramatic lights and dramatic darks. One of the things that I like about this painting is that the darks are so dark, the lights are so light, you put them next to each other and they just pop. Imagine if these two colors were only one value apart and they were very similar. You just wouldn't get the drama of this. If you're not familiar with the term value scale, if you can picture on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being black, 10 being white, and all the shades that you would go in between to go from black to white. If you have a painting with a lot of drama in it, it's going to have probably 5 values in it. So you're going to have very strong dramatic lights and very dark dramatic darks. The fewer values that you have and the closer those get together, there's just not going to be the drama. So that's one thing I really love about this painting. Another thing that really drew me to this composition, and again this was taken right as the sun was coming up, is I love that the trees were in silhouette. They were black, and I thought, how dramatic is that going to be to have all that black interest at the bottom of the canvas. So make sure that your composition has good lights and good darks. I often will bump those up. If my reference photo looks a little flat, I'll take my lightest lights and go even lighter. I'll take my shadows and make them even darker. Try it on your next painting. The final tip I want to offer you today as a way to get more dramatic skies is to have dramatic color. If I could pick only one thing, if I was limited to only one thing that I could do with my paintings, it would definitely be color. It's the thing that really grabs my heart the most. And in this painting, I bumped the colors up a little bit. I didn't go crazy with it, but this is a little more colorful than my reference photo was. I don't know if you've had this experience, and I'm going to try some paintings again and see if maybe I've grown a little bit in this area, but the few sunrises and sunsets that I've tried to do where the sky was in strong oranges and reds, as dramatic and beautiful as it was in person, when I tried to put that on canvas, it just read a little garish to me. I don't know, it just felt too much, too artificial. One of the things that drew me to this composition is this unique color palette. It's not a color palette that I typically paint with. I don't usually get into these purpley pink tones that we have at the bottom, but I just thought this is so different, this is so unusual, and I think the color palette is something that really makes this distinctive. There was a little bit of peach in the bottom of the reference photo, but instead of just leaving it there, I put a wash of peach up into these skies. Again, just bumping up that color a little bit to make the painting look a little more dramatic and a little more interesting. So on your next painting, just take a look at what colors drew you to it, and could you kick those up just a notch. Hey, if you'd like to see more free stuff, check out other videos in the links below. Please leave your comments. I'd love to hear ideas for future videos. Make it a great day.